Hi, it is noon on Wednesday, and that means it is Writing Wednesday with me, Janet Fitch, answering your writing questions, your craft questions, your personal questions, your existential questions, all about writing, because it's all about writing. Hey, Amy, good to see you. Welcome. Um, If you have questions for me today, go ahead and put them in the chat. And if you have questions for me uh, in the middle of the week, which is most of the time, please write. Hi, Sarah. Please write to me through my website, janetfitchwrites.com, and send me a question. I will be happy to form a Writing Wednesday around your question. Hi, Marie. Um, so, today's question, it's been a big news day in America here. We have a shooting in Minneapolis, and it is very disturbing. We're all in the midst of massive kind of cosmic turmoil in the world and in our country. It's a rough ride. I'm basically an optimist, but it's a rough ride. So I thought I would talk today about concentration, which is the big writer question at times like this. How do you concentrate to do anything besides do the news on the 24-hour cycle? It's extremely tempting to do. And tempting is probably the wrong word. It's um, it's magnetizing. It is to say distracting is kind of to trivialize what's going on in the world. But it is a time where writers need to take a look at concentration. How do you concentrate when stuff is happening in the world and very quickly? How do you concentrate on your writing? Hi, Brenda. Um, Concentrating is not saying that what's going on in the world is unimportant. It is tremendously important. But what it is forgetting that what you're doing is important as well and takes time, that you cannot wake up one morning and have a novel, that it requires ongoing effort. Just as a child, you can't say, oh, I'm going to be doom scrolling all day today. I'll feed you tomorrow. No, you cannot feed the child tomorrow or the dog or I mean, these are living entities that require daily care no matter what's going on in the world. And um, it doesn't mean that you're less interested in the world, you're less invested, you're less concerned, but it matters that the kids get fed too, that the book gets fed to, the writing gets fed to. Hi, Jill. It's you know, the organizing principle of your life, if you're a writer, is going to be keeping that creative juice linked up. And believe me, what's going on in the world will affect your writing. It'll bleed through, just, we've talked about this before, just as you grow vines on a certain type of hillside, and the amount of water those vines get and the quality of the soil that's there will become part of the vine, will become part of the wine. Um, what you're going through as a writer while you're writing will affect your work. And, there has been very little time in human history where something hasn't been going on, something noteworthy and difficult has been going on. Times of relative peace and prosperity are not um, generally the human experience. The human experience is living, creating um, in difficult times. Difficult times has been the common denominator in all human experience. So as we endure and fight and absorb what's going on in our world, it is really important to remember that we are not unique in human experience. This is not unique in human experience. This is the way it has been for centuries and centuries and centuries. And the challenge is to remember that our lives are not infinite. And we want to engage, we want to produce, we want to generate, we want to express during the time, in the time we have. So it is a matter of concentration. Now, how do we concentrate? I thought this would be a really good day to address this. Amy says, yes, I'm between projects, querying one and trying to start another, so I need extra concentration, and news and life keep interfering. It's a timely topic for me. Um, the news and life will continue. It will continue. And if you take 5 hours out of the threshing machine that is the news today and often, um, if you take 5 hours out of it to work on your book, it will be there when you get back. We're sort of victimized in a way by the 24-hour news cycle, that instead of waiting for the 6 o'clock news the way one used to back in the day of the before the 24-hour news cycle, you'd read the paper in the morning, and then you would go about your day, and then you would, at 6, you would turn on the news, and you would watch the news, and then you would get the news. There would be an hour of news, and then you had the evening to do whatever. So I think it's helpful to try to recapitulate that um, period of exposure, and then return to um, what you are producing, and then check in again in the evening, and then go back to what you were doing. So you benefit no one by 24-hour news. That benefits no one. Believe me, you check in every 10 minutes, nothing will have changed. But if you check in 12 hours, you will get more you will get more news in a condensed way. So we're talking about condensing experience and clearing a path, clearing time for dedicating for production, for being in touch with our own project, and expressing, using, I mean, the point of all of this, basically the fight we're in for human dignity and sanity. Um, you're part of that as an artist. Our contribution to the world is not worrying. Worrying and consuming news is not our function in life. Our function in life is to produce something that will incorporate our feelings about the times and what's going on, um, even if it's not about what's going on, in the news today. It's about developing humanity. It's like, what's art for? It's to try to deepen people's um, sense of their own humanity. And so what we're seeing today is the absence of that, the absence of humanity. And the shock of it, and wanting to see something happen with that. um, you don't want to make news a spectator sport. You have absorbed what's happening, you go back and you psychically clear space that now I am going to do my part in deepening humanity, and then you return. So that's kind of on the logistical level, um, what will form the basis for concentration. Concentration, um, though, is something that dogs us. We have the acute um, crises that we're going through day by day by day by day, acute crises, and then we have long-term commitments and crises that just are big rolling things that keep going. Uh, and then how to center in the self and tune in to kind of the deeper humanizing, um, centered artist that you are. And what are you going to contribute to the world at this point? Um, it doesn't mean that humanity always wins in your work. Sometimes we're crushed. Sometimes a person is crushed. But the tragedy, as they knew in the Greek times, Aristotle, and talked about this in the Poetics, and this is the Euripides, this is Aeschylus, this is, the idea of tragedy is sometimes the individual is crushed, but the impact of that deepens the humanity of the viewer, of the audience who experiences the tragedy. Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet don't make it, but the tragedy reminds us to be more human, to think about polarities, to think about the damage we do. Um, and it awakens something in people. So, the comedy is taking a look at what we do that makes no sense. Um, so, art helps people become more human, and more art rather than less. We need more art rather than less. It is not a trivial thing at this moment to make art. Um, even if you feel somewhat helpless, this is where you're not helpless. So, how do we pull ourselves back from the horrors, that are going on right now? I'm not saying ignore it, because they'll be there. You can come back to it. Believe me, it will be there, at 6 o'clock tonight. Um, it'll be there tomorrow morning in the headlines. It'll be there. It's going to work its way through the system. And you're going to do whatever you're going to do to try to, if you're political, you will try to call your congressman, senators, whatever you can do, going to donate again to some of these organizations that are working fine. But we're talking about now the artist, which you don't stop making art because terrible things are happening in the world. Terrible things are happening in the world, and they need your art to help people feel more human. Um, and, to break the ice inside those human people who are decided that they're going to be sealed off from their feelings so they can do terrible things or accept terrible things, if they have to open up because of your work. So this is where art comes in as opposed to entertainment. And entertainment is fine too, because sometimes people need a break and you watch a movie and it's funny or it's thrilling and has nothing to do with this world. Um, it's it's a refreshment, and that helps people as well. But as artists, we generally are trying to get at something. We're trying to get at something that is important for people to know about life. That's why when I say, uh, move to the big idea, you know, you can have your characters experience something and then, okay, well, I saw that happen. But if you sit with it a little while and you think, what does it mean? And you can work your way up to the next level of ideation, the next level of thinking, you might find that that incident actually means something. There's something more about it. Um, that you're telling a ghost story, and then you stop for a second, if you can find a place to do so. You stop for a second and think, what are ghosts? What are ghosts? And how do I feel? What is a ghost a metaphor for? I have a character in my book right now who's thinking about ghosts. I brought that up, and how hard it is to get, she says, to get over the fence of from this world to the next. They're carrying something that it keeps them from getting over that fence. So they're still hanging around. Um, and then she thinks, well, I know a lot of living people like that. You take the next step. You try to find, you think it through a little bit more. Um, so that's one way to center the humanity of what you're doing. And as a response to the, onward, 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 and nothing is ever really unpacked and thought about it, handled. Um, so we talk about the, staying away from the 24-hour news cycle. It, they make, I mean, the news is real. Hopefully your news is real. The news you're watching is real. You have to be careful. Um, but news organizations and media companies make money the longer the more upset you are by things. And it tends to make you more extreme because it feeds you stuff that's going to make you engage more, as we know on social media. Be careful of that. So in pulling back, you get the news and then you pull back. You say, I'm not going to make money for Mark Zuckerberg or whoever by digging around on the internet. We know, we got the news, we got the message, now it's time to turn. So you don't have to think of it cutting away. It's more turning. You're turning in a different direction. You're turning back into the humanity of your work. So how do you improve concentration? I mean, we all have terrible problems. Hi, Buzena. We all have terrible problems um, being pulled by, like for me and many of you, because you work on a computer, you tend to be pulled onto social media or onto the news or, pulled out of your work. Um, and it becomes a dopamine hit. I don't know if anybody has following the science on addiction to the internet and social media, but it gives you a little hit because that's how they're using you. You know, anything that's free on the internet is being monetized by someone, usually not you. So if you're not paying, you are the product. Okay, everybody's heard that. So that might help arm you a little bit. Um, but think about concentration as turning away rather than cutting off. You're going to go back. You're going to go, but you avoid being sucked in because one thing leads to another. So you have to approach it helps to approach the internet as if anybody's on a diet, it tends to be January, it's time for it to go on a diet. Um, I know some people are Ozempic, but a lot of us just go and have a diet for a while. But if you're a somewhat addictive personality, which many writers are, funny enough, that the first bite, you think, oh, I'll just have a little bit of blank, right? And there you are finishing the whole pint of ice cream or the whole bag of Doritos or the whole whatever. The first bite is, on the one hand, it's just a little bite, how could that harm anything? But if you're an addictive person, imagine it's just pulling the plug on the bathtub. It's, it's plugging into that. Hi, Jennifer. So the just one cigarette days, Jennifer says. Yeah. The internet is just one cigarette. So what I've been doing is this. I've been get marbles. I love marbles. I think they're really pretty. So I get the marbles, and every time, let's see, you can do this either way. Every time I resist, because you can resist a billion times and then finally give in. Every time I resist going on the internet, I put a marble in here. And then I get to see, like by lunchtime, this should be pretty full, that I am not doing internet shopping. I am not doing all this other stuff. Being at a time of tremendous news importance today, it makes it clearer how you want it, that you want your work to be as important as what else is going on. And so you give yourself a point when you resist. It's important to have a list when you are ready. What you're doing is you're getting rid of the addiction of the little dopamine hit. It's like I'm working and I'm building up tension, right? Everybody, while you're working, and then there's something in you that kind of wants to have a break, which you used to have a cigarette, right? You want a break. So you go on the internet. I'll just check my email. Oh, I'll just, look at one thing. Oh, I'll look that up. But one thing leads to another. It's not just one. It's not just like a corner of the chocolate bar. You're not going to take a quarter of the chocolate bar and then go back to your story. I guarantee you that one bite will lead to another, lead to another, lead to another. And there you are 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, half an hour later. You've broken your forward motion. You've broken your ability to get down, down, down into your work. And instead, you find yourself shopping for trouser socks when you just went in to find out how to spell something, or where is the lemur from, or some random internet search. So instead, write it down on a piece of paper. This is how we used to do it before there was an internet. You had a question, It's like, what did the inside of that bar look like? So instead of going to their website and starting to look around and then letting that move you into something else, something else, something else, as it does, you write down interior bar, bar X. And then the next time you, let's see, I actually kept track of this for a day, in more than a day, in this little journal of the kind of things that I resisted, my list. Like, um, I wanted to buy, you know, buy a ticket for something. It came to mind. I want to buy a ticket, but I didn't go on, break from my work and go on to buy a ticket. I just wrote down, buy ticket for blah, blah, blah. Um, I wanted to update my Goodreads. I had finished reading something, but I know that if I do it, that's going to take at least 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then I will be checking it. The same thing with any social media post. I'm going to be checking it all day long. So better to put it off. So you put it off, you give yourself some credit for it, you can write it down, but make a list. And then you will find, when you do finally go online at the end of the workday, say I do, at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, it takes me 20 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. Because it's not a rabbit hole anymore. I'm not going on for one thing and then allowing my attention to go to something else and then allowing my attention to go to something else. I have a list of things I have to look up. So I look up that one thing, and then I look up the next thing and the next thing, and I buy the ticket and I post on Goodreads, and then they're not linked anymore, and they're not linked to the dopamine hit. They're not linked to the addiction part of myself, which is extremely strong. And most of us are, because if we're working on long fiction, there is part of us that really gets caught up, right? It's the same personality. So here's how you dance with that personality. You get your questions answered, but not at the moment that you think of it. You have to put it off, and that itself builds the muscle of, um, how would you say it? Not endurance. I don't like that word, but you build the muscle of toleration, that you can tolerate wanting to know something, being confident that you will eventually get the answer, but you're able to resist that little impulse, little impulse. Um, it's incredibly cumulative over the course of a day, because every time you resist the impulse, you get a little stronger. It's a little easier. Um, and then if you have a list now of all the things that you were going to look up at the end of the day, then you don't get hooked, because you're not doing it as a respite from your work. It's just information at that point. So it's extremely important not to fall prey to that. I'm just going to look up one thing, or I'm going to buy those tickets while I'm thinking of it. Make a list right there on your desk. Make a list of all the things that, oh, I need this. Oh, I've got to go on eBay and get, blah, blah, blah. Don't stop working. Put it on your list. And then you're building tolerance, and concentration. I mean, that's basically what concentration is the ability to resist those little I don't call them necessarily distractions, but it's an invitation to distraction. You're resisting that first cigarette. You're resisting that first puff that's going to lead you, down the garden path, as you well know. Um, the other thing about concentration is to value your work as you're doing it. There are people who are writers, and there are people who like to tell people they're writers. But writers have to f- value what they're doing, value the day's production. You know, did I get 5 pages written? Did I get 2 pages written? I usually do it in time rather than pages, because sometimes you throw out everything. But if I can get it, did I get in a good 5 hours? Did I get in a good 3 hours? A good 3 hours is a good thing. The other thing people that trains the concentration, people are saying, oh, I don't have the focus. Oh my God. We were talking to my stepson, and he's a musician, and he can game for hours. He can play the guitar for hours. He composes and, orchestrates and stuff. But he says, I don't have the concentration anymore to watch a movie, like straight on through. So that's a 2 hour event, right? And he is at home, not in the movie theater anymore. We're watching movies on our laptops or whatever. And he cannot resist the temptation to um, check the news, check his Bandcamp, or check things on the internet while he's watching the movie, because you usually have the movie and then you have your phone, so you have two screens going. It's not a good thing. um, and it to resist the urge to break off an experience, to check something, to look something up. Who was in that movie? What was the last movie that guy was in? Who's directing this thing? You know, whatever it is that interrupts your ability to concentrate on one thing is training you to become more and more addicted and less capable of staying with a single phenomenon. So concentration is about staying with the phenomenon you're dealing with. Um, and it benefits you in a billion ways, the ability to have a conversation with someone without looking at your phone, have dinner with somebody without reading the paper. you know can you develop the muscle to stay with a phenomenon? It's a very meditation trains this. If anybody meditates, it's supposed to be a very good thing for your concentration. But you can hit it straight on too. Um, I think the most beneficial way of training the concentration, besides not going breaking for the little dopamine hit while you're working, is reading. Can you read for for me, 90 minutes is what I'm always looking for. 90 minutes a day of reading. And you read for a few minutes, and the temptation to get your to get your phone out and check, your email and stuff, it's extremely strong, especially if we haven't been fighting it in our on our work day. We don't have that muscle. So one thing, the gamification of information, working against the clock is a terrific way of playing as if it's a game with your concentration of reading. So I know you know what I am thinking about, the dopamine hit. So you take a piece of paper and you put your page you're on and say, I want to read 90 minutes. I put a timer on. Where's my timer? I don't know where it is. You put 10 minutes on your timer. You write down the page number and start reading. And don't dawdle. You want to get through that book. So you read, you have your 10, read as fast as you can, really. I mean, it's hard when you're taking notes or writing the margins, which I do. But you write, and then when the timer goes off, 10 minutes, you write how many pages you got in 10 minutes. And then the next 10 minutes, start it again, you know, and then you'll discover maybe a half hour, you have 4 pages, 5 pages, oh, I read about 4 or 5 pages an hour of this book. And then you keep going, timing, until you get to 90 minutes. Sometimes you can't do it at a stretch. But I can stick to a book longer when I am timing like that. And I get 90 minutes a day that I've actually been focusing my mind on one thing. So it increases my ability to concentrate on my work, because it disabuses you from the checking your phone, checking your email, checking your social media. Did people like that post? And it pushes it away. So if you can get through your day without checking your social media, or did people like that post or whatever, it's not as fun. It's not as urgent, and it's not as fun when you do it at the end of the day, because it doesn't have that extra hit, the dopamine rush. You've lived through the absence of that dopamine rush all day long, so that when you do finally look it up, it doesn't have that kick. And it's not addictive in the same way that checking things while you're doing something else does. So the question here is that Marie says, what about looking up a word as you read? Okay, this is something that builds your vocabulary, and it's something when I work with junior high and high school students, I suggest is, as you read, write down the words you don't know. That's another list, or you can put it on the same list as the page movement. Write down the word, guess what it means as you're reading. You come across a word you don't know. Everybody does this anyway. You sort of guess what it means. Write down the word. Then when you're done for the day, get the dictionary out and look up the words, all of them. So say if you are reading something that's, difficult or somewhat difficult, or at least at grade level or more, you'll have a nice little list. You might have 10 words. You might have 20 words if you're reading a book of. And then you look them up all at once. So it becomes its own activity and not a break from what you're doing. See, in the old days, we didn't break as much, and our concentration was better. So you have to outsmart this thing. So you make a list, then you look up all the words you didn't know. Notice how many of them, oh, I figured that was what it meant. And then notice also the ones you didn't, that were completely off base. Very funny. You have a little laugh at yourself for what you thought that word meant. but you're training the concentration to stay with the primary activity and not taking these little breaks. It's very, very tough on the concentration. So reading is the ultimate concentration builder, along with meditation. Or I have these cards. One of my favorite, uh, my performance artists is Marina Abramovic, who is absolutely an incredible person. She's the one who sat in the museum and looked at people for, um, what did she do it for? 3 months, for 8 hours a day. She sat, and people sat opposite her at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and they just looked at each other, and until the person was ready to get up, and then somebody else sat down, and then she looked at them for 8 hours. She looked at hundreds and maybe thousands of people in that time. Well, she has a box. I have a friend who interviewed her in Santa Barbara, and she has a game. And it is amazing. It has them, it has you doing all kinds of things that you normally would never do, like walk backwards for, she said, for 40, she said for 2 hours or something. I was able to do it for 45 minutes. And boy, that was a lot of mental effort. But one of the things in here that I haven't done yet is to stare at a wall for 2 hours. Stare at a wall for 2 hours. I mean, I can do it. I know I can do it. And I know I should do it, because it is builds concentrate. Her concentration is insane. And this is the kind of thing she does. She did a walk down the Great Wall of China, that she was going to start on one end, and her partner, a lot of emotional stuff going on there, but her partner was going to come the other way, and they were going to meet in the middle. And before she did that walk, she did what they call the Green Terra meditation at a monastery, where you recite the name of Green Tara, who is a divinity, Buddhist divinity, like 111,000 times. It took her 3 months. That is concentration, absolute concentration. And the confidence that that kind of concentration and focus give a person, if you need any way to pull yourself out of the hypnosis of the 24-hour news cycle, especially, doing something that demands focus like that, concentration like that, um, you know, staring at a wall for 2 hours, just a blank wall. Keep a no social media streak as much as the Duolingo was. See, I can't go that long. But yeah, if you can make a streak of no social media during work hours, um, that would be fantastic. And they're not going to put that on your social media. They're not going to put that on your Amazon. They're not going to put that on your, but you certainly should be able to do that. And, just as you would do your diet, you know, that my, day 19 of keto, day 19 of no social media during working hours. But, it's understanding your process. Um, Marie says, do you think there's a big difference using a dictionary over Google? I think that I always prefer paper over uh, the internet because um, I am an addict, and I will start by looking something up on Google, and I will end up buying sheer trouser socks with dots on them, you know? Whereas when you read a book to get the answer to something, it doesn't lead to buying socks or lemurs in Madagascar. Um, Unless you decide, okay, I'm just going to have my milk and cookies and read the dictionary, because that's fun. That I used to do that as a kid. Um, I don't think there's a big difference, except that the Google is tied into other things, and the dictionary is not. And the thesaurus, certainly, the thesaurus is, um, I treasure my hardbound thesaurus. I mean, people have seen it. It's completely uh, duct taped together. Um, so I like books. I prefer to learn from books. I prefer to do book research, the library. Um, and I think that it just sidesteps the whole dopamine addiction cycle. Um, but the more you can focus um, with great energy, um, with great force, um, resisting all the little, just that little addict to just one puff, you know, I'm gonna just smoke half a cigarette. It's like, no, you're not. No way. But after a day of resisting that, the next day is easier. 10 days is easier. When you're used to not, I mean, yesterday I unplugged my computer and I wrote longhand, and it was amazing how much more I got. Um, I think that especially when the news cycle is so horrible right now. I don't mean the news cycle. I mean what's on the news is so compelling. It's so compelling. But once you got the message, once you know what's going on, you do not have to continue to watch it. You are not a journalist. Maybe you are a journalist, but you're not a journalist. You're not in charge of knowing every tiny slice of event that happens. Um, you're in charge of writing and keeping fairly current on the state of the world. You do want to know, but you don't have to know every 15 minutes. You are not working for the AP. You're not working for Reuters. You're not working for, you know, the real news outlets. Um, you are, you know, you're part of the solution, probably. Um, but you're not, you don't, it's not necessary to know every quarter hour. What's necessary is you're an artist. You have a function in the society. And your function is to stay in touch with the issues of being a human being and helping people remember what it is to be a human being, and ongoing the ongoing difficulties um, of being a human being. Or even if you're doing entertainment, you know, your project is not nothing. Your project is important too, you know, to give people some relief from the horribleness. You know, think about the Great Depression. It wasn't over in a year. It wasn't over in 2 years. It lasted really 10 years. And it was worse in its third, fourth, fifth years. And the people who were able to entertain suffering, everyday people were beloved and necessary, and more than necessary. Um, they were essential. So think of yourself as an essential worker in this time to contribute what you can contribute. And worrying about, the latest outrage is shows your humanity. But you don't have to keep proving that all day long. You need to remember what you're here for and not, I just think of it as turn away from that for a while. It'll be there when you get back. I guarantee you, there won't suddenly be, angels coming down from heaven saving us. It'll still be there. Turn away for a while and focus on what you're bringing to the world. And then you're also, resisting having your attention used by the algorithm that wants to jar you. It's trying to. So you have to think about that too. So Linda says, one puff, ha. In AA, they say, don't take the first drink. Don't take the first drink. Thank you. That is absolutely true. And then Bozena was saying about the Marina Abramovic, like, stare at a wall for 2 hours. Yeah. You know, she says, the exercises do open your mind. They give you, also, they give you space because when the news is so bad, it crowds in on you. You can't think about anything else. You can't do anything else. You just have to see more and more and more of the same. Um, Whereas the liberation of doing, uh, a focus exercise is wonderful. But your focus exercise is for a purpose, and it's strengthening your mind to be able to concentrate on what you're creating, also on what you're reading. When people say, I don't have time to read, I don't have time to read, but they have time to spend 3 hours a day on the internet. Um, you you have to think of your reading as um, building muscle. It's like going to the gym. It's your ability to concentrate on something without bells and whistles. And it helps to have a little, using the timer helps me add just a little bit of that dopamine thing that I'm addicted to. But it keeps me reading. I don't drift away because I only have 10 minutes. They call that the Friday afternoon effect, where you work harder when you are trying to leave the office at 5 o'clock. Lucky you if you can leave at 5 o'clock. But if you know, just as an example, people work more efficiently just before they have to leave for the day because they want to wrap it up, wrap it up. Uh, Whereas if you feel you have a lot of time, then you tend to not use the time as efficiently. So you can use other kinds of methods of concentration. I've showed you the one where you do 50. You have 4 activities and you do 15 minutes, 15 minutes as you move through 4 activities, and then you come back and do 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes using the timer, and that helps focus tremendously. Um, oh, good. No end legacy. League C. Um, I I don't know your name, but thank you. I'm glad the channel is helpful. And if you enjoy my talks, I do them every week. Please subscribe. It helps me feel like I should keep doing it. It's a little gift that you can give me for my, um, spending this time with you. Appreciate it. And so I hope that you get some work done today, that you turn away just for a while. You make a list of the things you need to look up instead of breaking your work to look things up and taking that first drink. And and I wish you a happy and productive and somewhat sane 26. And God, I hope things clear up a little bit. Okay. Thank you. Hi, Blair. Bye.